Well, we would like to say it was quick and painless. It was definitely quick. I don't know about painless. The Guardians did get everybody out of Detroit in record time, at least their quickest game since 2019. And, if nobody was there to see it, did it really happen? The Guardians were disappointing in Detroit on Tuesday in a doubleheader, but nobody was there to see it, and it happened very quickly. So maybe it just never happened at all. Maybe the pain you're feeling and the disappointment you're feeling is just a figment of your imagination. Maybe you're not even listening to this podcast. Hopefully you are, because this is Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Over there is Justin. I'm Jeff. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. And I also want to say we have your team covered every day.
Even on these days.
These were poor games. Not a whole lot to take positive from them. Let's just move on. I'm kidding.
We're on to Wednesday.
Yes.
So
let's start the natural way, which is starting with our first game in this one, the one that looked like they might, win.
Well, real quick, do you want to get into
the roster moves
set up today? Yeah. So
Ty Freeman up because Ahmed's back is bulky. He's got that issue, and Yale on the paternity list. And if anyone wants to give him crap, they need to, realize what century we live in. Good for him for going to be there for the birth of a kid.
Pilkington was the 27th man, never got into the game.
He got called up.
Which I guess that's I don't know. It's one of the silver linings. They never had.
They didn't overuse the ball, but it's almost like it was a close game, so I understand why they didn't go to him. But it's almost like heck, Stefan and Class, they didn't pitch in either of these affairs either. It was a weird day, but logical moves all around. They needed another shortstop. They needed they needed a arm, and they went out and made those maneuvers. Detroit got on the board first, and then Gaddis was okay. Like, I know there's a tendency to shred him, and everyone wants him off this roster. He was serviceable. Was it great? No. He's just not generating enough swings and misses. If he was facing a better team, it could have gone poorly. It's just not really working for him as a starter. And neither you and I were both thought he was a top 20 prospect, but you and I both thought he was a reliever. This was not his role on this team to begin with. He was supposed to be in the bullpen, and then Tristan got hurt, and it kind of made everything shift. So yeah, for me, as I was going through the advanced data on him, the big thing was he had 5 swings and misses in 5 innings, and that's just not going to get it done. That's a Josh Tomlin level of contact against, and he doesn't have quite Tomlin's command, but he is weirdly, some degree, with his home run proneness, Tomlin-like. It would be my description of him. But he was fine. He's not the reason they lost this. If you go 5 innings and give up 3 runs, in my mind, that's a solid start. Like I said, I don't see maybe a long-term pathway, just because the cutter. No, I'm looking at the wrong guy. No, yeah, this is him. The cutter and the 4-seamer are maybe 45 grade pitches right now. I don't know if they're even 50. The change is really the only one that's got some, plus. I think is a plus pitch, and the curveball isn't there. I read a great piece by Saros over on The Athletic about the sweeper, and the takeaway from the sweeper is you kind of need to change to go with it. I kind of wish Gaddis would just spend some time in AAA and see if he couldn't pick up a sweeper. See if he could, since his changeup has some decent movement, see if he couldn't fiddle with that, because he needs something he can use to get swings and misses right now. And unfortunately, he just doesn't really have that.
Yeah, the changeup can be a swing and miss pitch for Gaddis. He just needs to be able to get into counts where he can use it. That's his biggest issue is changeups are just typically not a pitch you can throw on your first or second pitch or when you're down the count. I don't know. His changeup is good. Like you said, it's at least it's maybe above average. It's plus. I think it's a plus changeup just because of how it moves. But you have to be able to be in counts to use that. And I don't even know. It's for him. I don't even know if it's a command thing too. Like I think it's a chase pitch too. So he's got to be ahead in the count to get guys to chase it. And he's a control over command guy, so he can throw strikes enough. But we're not talking about, like you said, Josh Tomlin. Josh Tomlin had command, not control. I think people confuse those things very often. Command is being able to. Command is what Shane Bieber has. He can throw the ball where he wants it. Control is not walking guys. And
I would argue Tomlin had both, just because his stuff was worse than Gaddis's, but he was able to be effective with it.
Yeah, well, it's because he had command. Gaddis, I don't think has great command. I think he's a control guy, and the command isn't quite there. I mean, he only walked one guy against Detroit, and that's what he should do, because that's exactly what you said about not missing bats. Detroit has the third worst strikeout rate in baseball coming into the doubleheader, and he only struck out one batter and he only missed 5 bats. So if you're not getting chases and misses against this team, you're not getting them against any team. Against the better team, this would have been a disaster of a game, to be honest with you. Like, Gaddis pitched fine. Like, I'm not saying he did bad. He had 17 called strikes. He threw 9 cutters for strikes, 7 fastballs. So fastball control was not an issue for him today. He only threw 12 changeups, which I think is part of the problem. But he also probably faced a lot of righties. I'm looking at the lineup here in game 1, and it's hard to throw a right-on-right changeup. One. No, there was a lot of lefties, actually. You had Gametime, Green, Kerry Carpenter, Badu, McKinstry, all lefties. So there were enough lefties in the lineup.
Badu was the defensive replacement, wasn't he? Or am I looking at the wrong game?
He had 4 bats in game 1.
No, I'm looking at the wrong game. I was looking at wrong too. And that's, again, to go back to that Sarah's piece. It's like guys with sweepers. It's only a sweeper doesn't work to get the other side out. To get out, a sweeper works best for righty on righty. That's why you need to change for the righty on lefty. So he has the pitch to help him get out lefties, which is, again, why he might be better in the bullpen, because a lot of guys who move into that role don't have that offering that can help them get out the other side. So, again, you and I both think he's got a chance to pitch in the big leagues for quite a few years, but it's bullpen. Like, he doesn't have that secondary pitch that's going to allow him to get out righties right now.
Yeah. Again, I think the problem was, though, if this had been against a team that wasn't as bad as the Tigers, this would have been a lot worse. So, yeah, Gaddis was fine against the Tigers. This is the kind of team, and giving, like you said, giving him 3 runs in 5 innings, that should have been enough for this team. You're facing Matt Boyd, who, I know people are going to say, soft tossing lefties have killed the Guardians in the past. That's true.
They played well against Boyd, though.
They didn't today, or in general, you mean? In general.
Yeah,
in general. And people are going to say, well, soft tossing lefties always kill them. This is not the same lineup that used to do that, though. You're talking about, the 2021 Indians. You're talking about the Indians who did bad against soft tossing lefties. The Guardians did not have this big of a problem last year against soft tossing lefties. Boyd, Boyd is no better than Hunter Gaddis.
No,
he's a reliever too, and he's in the rotation because the Tigers have guys hurt. So
remember when he's always going to be that great question in my mind where they thought they had caught lightning in a bottle with him, and the Tigers tried to sell way too high, got stuck holding the bag, and it's just always.
And now he's back with them for a second run. Like, this is a second run.
Always a cautionary tale of like holding the bag and not trading value when you could. Let's see, against the Guardians. Against the Guardians, he's at 16 games, they have a 715 OPS against him. It's not bad. Over 700 for a team against a pitcher. That's a pretty good performance.
Well, they swung and missed 14 times against Matt Boyd today. That's the problem. That's not good for a guy who doesn't typically miss a lot of bats, and for a team that doesn't strike out a lot. The Guardians struck out a lot on Tuesday. They struck out 7 times in game 1. They struck out 14 in game 2, I think.
Sounds about right. It was Eduardo had 10, I believe. That's all I know.
Yeah, they just swung and missed a lot today. And people are going to say, wow, it's cold or it's April. You know what? The Tigers had the same weather today. It was just bad at bats. It was just
the Tigers are awful. Like, they're the worst offensive team in baseball. And the Tigers are the worst offensive team in baseball. And it's not particularly close last time I checked.
Right. So that's why I said you're right. They came into the game with 50 runs scored, 3 less than Miami and Cleveland. for all their offensive issues, is 20th at 74 coming in, and they didn't really raise it that much today. But again, Gaddis was fine. But against the better team, this would have been a disaster. So
the Royals are worse now. I misspoke.
The Royals are worse now. Well, either way, this game would have been this first game would have been a lot worse had they faced a team that, hadn't been tanking the last 3 years and couldn't get out of, neutral or.
Last year they even tried.
No, I know.
Their problem. They were.
Well, they act like they tried because they signed Javi Baez. They act like they were trying.
I mean, they signed Eduardo Rodriguez. It was I lauded the Rodriguez one. You had Casey Mize coming off a good year. Tarek Skubal, the way he's. I mean, they looked. They were a team on the rise. It just did not come together. But we'll have to. Speaking of seconds, we'll have to talk about the second game, which might be even more painful. Well, heck, we haven't even finished the first game yet. But we'll dig into that.
I think we've had enough of game one. We can move on to game two.
I got to throw it out there. Even though I'm 99 is fine with me. It is his third loss of the year coming out of the pen. They've got 9 losses total, and 3 of them on him so far.
We'll discuss that coming up.
Hey, so we have our first sponsor of the day. That is our good friends over at eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage, look for the green check to know the part will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
All right, real quick before game two, after the game, Terry Francona said that they think Tyler Freeman's fine. He, was available-ish in game two, I suppose. Ahmed Rosario went through, he had an MRI in Cleveland, and his back was fine. He went through a workout before game two. He was, in uniform. But Andre Nod said on the broadcast that he wasn't expected to play till Friday. So that's why Freeman was up to begin with. And Brian Rocchio was scratched from the Columbus lineup late on Tuesday. Sounds like that was a precautionary thing, not for Rocchio, but because if Tyler Freeman, so if you didn't watch the games or if you haven't really heard, in game one, Freeman, who by the way had 2 hits, solid effort in game one, I think it was Spencer Torkelson, or I can't remember who was stealing second. I'm pretty sure it was Torkelson. Slid into Freeman's arm, his leg crossed his arm, and it kind of pulled Freeman's left shoulder back. And he was kind of grabbing at the end of the game. So he stayed in. He was fine. He finished the game. He was held out of game two. So
was that with Gaddis pitching? Because if it was late in the game with Morgan pitching, that would have been Zach McKinstry.
I do not remember who was pitching, but whoever was stealing a base slid into his arm and it pulled it back. So he's supposedly fine. The only issue is that's the arm he's had surgery on twice, that shoulder. So got to watch out for that. They got to do right by him. So yeah, it sounds like Rocchio was pulled from the Columbus lineup late on Tuesday as a precaution in case they needed him to get up to Detroit. So, could be down Freeman and Rosario. Freeman was up to cover Rosario with a back issue, who is supposed to not play till Friday. And if Freeman's down, then you're down to Arias and nobody back there. So I'm not sure what kind of move they'd have to make, but I guess stay tuned for Wednesday afternoon to see if they have to make a move to add Rocchio to the 26. He's already on the 40.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I know we talk about the shoulder surgery he had, recently with the labrum, but isn't that the surgery wasn't the first, that shoulder has been a right?
You're cutting out, Jeff. Sorry. He had shoulder surgery twice on that shoulder. So if that's what you're asking, yeah, he had surgery on that. He had shoulder surgery twice on that same shoulder. So if that's the issue you're talking about, yes. So
yes.
been the issue in the past. The lineup in game 2 was also interesting, the way things played out because of Freeman being out of the lineup in game 2. Or not, I guess they only had Arias playing shortstop. He was dropped down. Didn't have Rosario in there. So Brennan and Straw at the top was interesting. I don't know if I like that going forward or not, but just I know you're facing a lefty, and they were shorthanded once again because of all the injuries. So Naylor's in there as a DH against lefties, not ideal. Jimenez, is still hitting 7th against lefties, and I know everyone's going to say it's against lefties. He doesn't have a problem against lefties. He hits them fine. So the way Straw has played, I'm fine having him in the 2-hole. It's just having Josh Naylor in the 5-hole against a left-hander over Jimenez is just really silly to me. It's silly to me in general in terms of baseball, but it's silly to me against a left-hander with all this lineup shuffle they had to do in game 2.
The only thing I could think of, and it seems like I'm back, and yes, I was just trying to point out that Freeman's shoulder has been, I don't know if I want to say chronic, but a multiple-time injury. But the only thing I could point to outside of the left-handedness was like Jose in front of Gabby to help protect him, or Gabby in front of Jose, I should say, and then Oscar in front of Andres, like if they're trying to do some type of lineup protections, which I don't really believe is a thing, but is kind of an older view. It doesn't make sense for Andres to hit that low. Again, he hit like 110 last year against lefties in terms of runs created plus. He was one of their top 5 hitters for that. Like it's ridiculous for him to be batting 6th in the lineup.
In general, against righties or lefties, it just makes no sense. Straw and Brennan was an interesting choice. Brennan, I had platoon splits in the minors, but it's hard to tell if those were legitimate or not. I don't have a problem with him in that spot, but it didn't really matter because they couldn't touch Eduardo Rodriguez. I mean, an uncharacteristically poor day for Jose Ramirez. Four strikeouts and 4 at-bats game 2, the first time he's ever done that in his career. He was 1 for 4 in game 2, so he had 5 strikeouts in 8 at-bats today. That is just nothing we've ever seen from Jose Ramirez before, so that contributes to a lot of bad things for the Guardians. And
you had a guy striking out 4 times in each game, which is also just a nice black hole in your lineup when that happens.
Yeah, 14 swings and misses against Rodriguez, mostly the cutter and they missed fastballs. They missed Eduardo Rodriguez had 7 swings and misses against his 4-seam fastball, 5 against the cutter. Everything else they put in play. So
what's weird is that 4-seam has below average spin and is strictly average in terms of its break. It's not like that 4-seam fastball is special. It's the definition of an average pitch.
And he threw it for a strike only 51% of the time. Like he was only in the strike zone half the time with the 4-seam fastball. So just a lot of poor at-bats for the Guardians on Tuesday. It was just a very bad offensive approach, something we haven't seen from them for a team that doesn't strike out a lot, for them to strike out that many times in a day. And just how little he threw the fastball for strikes. I mean, he threw the cutter for strikes plenty, but and exit velocity wise, like they didn't touch anything. Like their best exit velocity against Eduardo Rodriguez was 98.9. That was the cutter. But their averages were all below 90, 84 against the fastball, 70 against the sinker, 84 against the cutter, 71 against the changeup, 78 against the slider. They did not hit anything hard. And again, people say, well, it was cold, but you know what? Detroit had the same issues. They found a way to scrape a run across. You can't sit here and blame the weather when both teams have to play in the same weather in these games.
And that's been their story this year. Like you go across the lineup, we were talking about Jose before the game. It's like most of his numbers are okay, except for his hard hit percentage and his barrels are low. And they're just in general not making good contact as a team.
Yeah, it was the same issue a year ago. I mean, they were last. They were first in baseball in contact rate. They were last in hard hit rate. And we thought that Josh Bell could help solve those issues. And he had a hit today. He had a double. I think I drove in a run. So, like, Josh Bell is coming around. Oscar Gonzalez, we're talking about silver linings today. Oscar Gonzalez hit a home run. The pitch he hit a home run on wasn't even a strike. Like, it was a little change up on it was inside by his thighs, and he somehow pulled down the left field line. So, God, you really hope that's a sign of things to come for him because they really need him to figure things out. I don't know. You want to take away any real silver lining to me is Peyton Battenfield. And again, what we said for Gaddis, is this is a bad Tigers team. So if you're not having success against the Tigers, you're not going to have a lot of success against anybody else. And this is not to take away from Battenfield's start, obviously, because he pitched well and he did well against the Yankees. So 2 times through, I'll be curious to see what happens when more tape starts to circulate on him. But 10 swings and misses on 30 cutter. So he went cutter heavy against the Tigers again. Nothing else really missed bats for him. And he was generally, everything else was kind of average. So that cutter just continues to be a weapon for Peyton Battenfield. Guys can't hit it. They're chasing it. They're not making a lot of contact with it. It's keeping exit velocity suppressed. So that's one good weapon he has. I really do want to see what happens when teams see more of him and he's got to rely on some other pitches as well. But you got to, I think for the time being, he's got to stay in the rotation. You can probably keep Gaddis going as a week by week thing, right? But I think for right now, you can at least, I wouldn't Sharpie Peyton Battenfield's name in the rotation, but I would put it in pen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's I mean, he's pitching so well. It's kind of interesting. I was looking at the data here for the game. It's like they don't even have his, like I was going to look at the cutter and be like, oh, so what's like, his spin rate and that on that. And I don't know why, but while it has like Curry and Eduardo and Jason Foley's, it doesn't for me have that second box that says like, his spin compared to like league average or things like that across that cutter. I just get kind of, there's less data on him. And it is interesting because, you and I have obviously followed him for a while and I don't think anyone ever told me the cutter was this good. So I'm very curious to get more. I mean, it was a solid pitch. And, when they acquired him, he looked really interesting. Like he was a borderline top 10 guy for that half of that year and all the bats he was missing. There were people because he had a cutter. He came from another organization, was missing a ton of bats in Double-A. There, of course, the Kluber comments came from a few places, but this is not a Kluber emerging. That was a once in a lifetime situation. But at this point in time, if Tristan gets healthy, if you're going to go to Logan Allen, if you're going to make a move, I think Battenfield has done enough that he is the guy to stay for now.
Yeah, I don't think he's losing his 40-man spot anytime soon. Like you're talking about making moves to anybody else, he's got to stay. I had Battenfield's cutter to 55 when I wrote him up earlier this year on my site. So that was a pitch that he thought he was throwing a slider in the minors, and he kind of like went back and forth with that, like how to best to throw it, and he was having a hard time like figuring out which of the 2 pitches were better and which one he wanted to focus on, and he kind of ditched one or the other when he came to Cleveland. But the cutter has been his best pitch for the last couple of years. Yeah. So the changeup I thought also was a good pitch from initially too. He's not really used that. No. The curveball serviceable, but yeah, the cutter definitely has been his best offering since he's been in the Guardians organization.
And that's what's going to be fascinating to see with him because he's essentially almost entirely cutter 4-seam. Like he's a 2-pitch guy, and we'll have to see.
Which makes him a good bullpen candidate. Eventually.
Yes, eventually. But like right now, he. You let him run and you go from there. We'll probably discuss this a little bit more in our third segment.
Sure will.
Hey everyone, and one of my favorite sponsors here, Ultimate Pro Baseball GM, and I've got good news. They're now letting me submit multiple seasons into the scorebooks. I'm currently first and second in the league ranks. My newest score put me 1,600 points ahead of the closest person who is not me. So if they are going to pay out this prize, I got to turn and burn it so I can get in. Let's put it this way. If I can take all 3 spots and they will let me collect all 3 spots, I will make a cool grand by winning this league. So that's pretty fun. Not gonna lie about that. And it is a fun game. It is a game. I got a Steam Deck and I've loaded 100 plus games on my Steam Deck. And I spent the other night playing Pro Baseball GM for an hour. So go check out Ultimate Pro Baseball GM. It is a lot of fun. If you are a baseball fan, you're going to want to check it out. Locked On Guardians listeners get 100% free boost to the franchise when you use the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up in app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty.
Petition for Jeff to use that money on the Locked On Guardians night for the captains in the what was it, the classic auto arcade.
The unfortunate side is it's Amazon gift cards. I don't think I can use those to buy.
Sell the Amazon gift cards.
We'll see if they let me collect. It's that my petition is to take over the Colorado Rockies and free Nolan Jones.
Yeah, someone should do that. Something that might be coming soon. I saw that they want to bench Eliuris Montero, so that's good. But we were talking about Battenfield before. I think the guy needs to be in the major leagues right now. Like that cutter at least makes him a weapon out of the bullpen. And Sam Hentges is going to pitch tomorrow night in Akron, or tonight, I guess I should say, as a rehab. So like that's good. You get him back. I don't know what they'll do when he comes back. Who's going to go down? I assume one of the
Hunter.
Catchers. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I mean, I don't know how you could send Battenfield down right now. And again, against the better team, but he already faced the Yankees too. That's a better team.
Yeah. Feels like Curry or Gaddis. One of them is gonna.
I think it should be Gaddis. Honestly, you keep Battenfield out there. I don't know.
Hentges back to the rotation. You heard it here first. I'm kidding.
Oh Lord. Curry and Gaddis to me are similar pitchers.
Yes, agreed.
But I will say, I have more faith in the two breaking balls Curry has, and more fastball utility because of the ride on it. I have more faith in Curry. I would rather
curve
see
change. Curve was the big one coming out of college, I want to say.
Yeah, the slider's kind of overtaken his arsenal a little bit more. I really like the curve. I've always really liked his curveball.
You have no trouble with it?
Yeah. Oh, I had trouble watching that movie, so I can't.
Never watched it. Never.
Can't really give you a whole lot of reference. It was a bad movie, but kudos to Peyton Battenfield. I really do like him, and I enjoy watching him pitch. Like I didn't know what to expect today. I assumed that he did well against the Yankees, that he would not really have much issue with the Tigers, and he walked 3. So that's don't want that, especially against a team that doesn't swing and miss a lot. So you want to be in the zone more. But let's see, he pitched today, so in theory he would pitch against the Rockies this next homestand. He'd make his first start in Cleveland. He'd make another start in Cleveland. So that should be a team he has some success with. They're not really a great team, especially if they're going to play Mike Moustakas. So I would like to see Battenfield get a start against the Rockies and see what he does. But I'd just like to see how he adjusts when teams start to get a book on him. Like I know teams have scouts all over the minors now, so it's not like he's totally unknown. But he like the Yankees are coming up again the first week of May. He, in theory, would be in line to pitch against them. I think if he pitches against Colorado, so he would face the Yankees for a second time in his career in a matter of a couple weeks. So that gives him a really good chance to prove things as well. But I don't know. I'm excited to see more. I would flip Curry and Gaddis in the rotation, though. I like the way Curry has pitched. He gives up a little bit more contact, less walks, and yeah, I think there's still a home run problem there too, probably. But I would flip.
I say flip neither, and let's call up Logan Allen.
That's a good option too. Unfortunately, Jeff. I don't know. Wednesday today, Cal Quantrill versus Spencer Turnbull. I said it when we were previewing this series that I don't like Cleveland's odds against Spencer Turnbull. But you know what? They didn't hit Matt Boyd. They did not hit Eduardo Rodriguez. Maybe they'll miraculously hit Spencer Turnbull, who hasn't had a good season so far, but he's coming back from Tommy John. And as I said, if you're an everydayer, I said he had a good start against the Blue Jays, who obviously have a different world of an offense to Cleveland. And he has given Cleveland problems in the past, and I wouldn't be shocked if he shuts them down. Just saying. I know people are going to look at that stat line and be like, oh, they stunk against Spencer Turnbull too. I'm going to say, oh, Cleveland could get swept here, but then, of course, they'll come out and bash Spencer Turnbull if I say that.
Yeah, and Turnbull's still recovering. I know he was great in his last start, but he hasn't missed a ton of bats at the early going, and his walk rate's up, which is very common coming back from Tommy John. So there is an opportunity to be successful here. Well, I wish I felt more comfortable with Quantrill, who the last start was fine, but has started a little rough, and then had kind of the Rough World Baseball Classic as well. It reminds me, listen, it's not July, but don't freak out. Remember last July when the Tigers dominated the Guardians at the beginning of July and had that bad stretch? You sometimes have bad stretches. What stinks about it is the Tigers going to have a top 5 pick in 2024 again, and they are a bad team. And you have to beat the bad teams. And right now, they've lost 3 straight against bad teams.
That's bad. And you got good pitching matchups coming against the Marlins. You've got Sandy Alcantara and Jesus Luzardo coming to town who are going to pitch this weekend. So it could be a tough stretch for this offense if they don't get good things going. If you want to end on, I guess this won't be an end. Real quickly, I'm going to shout out Joe Donovan. If you don't know who Joe Donovan is, probably, but he is a undrafted free agent catcher out of Michigan. The Guardians picked him up in not 2017. What year did they pick him up? 2020? Yeah,
I think he was one of the 22. He was one of the few guys they signed because that was the short draft, right?
Yeah. Look, listen,
and he was a guy, not to put salt in the wound, but he had a 6-figure signing bonus out of high school that he turned down, and then had to get the $20,000 signing bonus because there was no draft that year. So
take the money.
The money.
Yeah. Listen, poor guy tonight is up in Columbus. He has not been above high A. He was in Lake County 2 years ago. And tonight he is a catcher. Tonight he played right field in Columbus because of the roster situation. Roman Quinn is hurt, I believe, and Columbus just needed some body. So Joe Donovan, who's been in Lake County so far this year, went up to play right field in Columbus. He actually got 2 hits, which is good. Good for him. Struck out 3 times. Made 2 errors in right field. Just putting that guy, and he's never played the outfield at the pro level either. So it's like totally unheard of right here, at least for him. And that should prove people wrong. I love people who are like, just, they guys move positions. It's baseball. They'll be fine. No, Joe Donovan's a professional athlete, and he has been a catcher's tough position. And on very short notice had to play right field. It's tough.
Outfield is hard. You got to get used to it. The only position I would disagree with you on is first base. I think a lot of guys can slot in there, but outfield, I think we saw with Ahmed, it is often very hard to get reads and to make. I mean, getting good breaks is a thing. Like being able to have that ability to be like Quan or Straw and always seem to make the right break is pretty rare.
Yeah, so just a shout out to him because I feel bad for the guy for having to be put in that situation. Hopefully he got a nice hotel room and a nice per diem, and hopefully the organization takes care of him because usually that's a pitcher thing. Like we've seen Tanner Tully and Jaime Arias and years back Zach. What's the guy's last name? Zach, the lefty.
Lefty. All I can think is like Galifianakis and Meisel right now, and neither of those are correct.
I can't remember the guy's name. He was in Zach. I can't remember the guy's name. He was a lefty in the organization. He was pitching everywhere from Lynchburg to Columbus whenever they needed him. So, you get those guys in the system that you need those guys, but it's also a tough situation, and I hope the organization takes care of those guys because
Zach Draper.
Zach Draper, yes, Zach Draper. He was a org guy who he would pitch at 3 different levels per year, I think. So, I just hope that the organization takes care of these guys for the way that they get shuffled like this, and they put Donovan in a bad situation. And he did get 2 hits, and again, AAA VO money for the day. And I don't know how all that works, truthfully, but I hope they took care of him because that's a tough situation and a guy who probably won't ever make the major league, so deserves a little bit of mention for that in a tough situation. And then, I don't know, really good article at Fangraphs talking about the Guardians outfield could be, very interesting that they have Quan and Straw, who obviously are elite defenders, high contact guys who run well. And they finally gave a little bit of love to Will Brennan, talking about him being kind of the third three-headed outfield monster that has a very similar skill set. And all 3 guys could play center field, and Fangraphs, at least from a prospect perspective, has kind of ignored Will Brennan over the last 2 years, even though they shouldn't have. And finally, they gave him a little love this year, and just good to see them. It's a really good article if you haven't read it. It's talking about. They did say that Will Brennan could be quote unquote a deep sleeper for Rookie of the Year. I'm not sure. Again, nobody has been higher than Will Brennan than I have been, I feel like, and I don't even know if I want to test those waters, but.
Anthony Volpe could hit 180 and he's winning Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Unless it's there's I guess Kodai Singh is in the National League, so that wouldn't make sense. But yeah, just saying that they have a 3-headed BABIP suppression monster, a whole lot of contact, a whole lot of speed. So people are taking notice of the Guardians outfield and taking notice of Will Brennan, which is good.
I know we're nearing an end here. I've got a few quick notes I want to make. One, in terms of shouting out 3 of our everydayers. Let's see. I was going through and wanted to specifically say Dave Windell will enjoy that we talked about Hunter Gaddis today, based on his comments. He'll be appreciating this show. I feel like Jonathan Bloomfeld is there every day, and Siege with me has the last 2 days said every day, so he was waiting to get that. We talked about hard hit percentage earlier in the episode. Do you know who leads the Guardians in hard hit percentage so far this year?
I'm going to guess Mike Zunino.
Ahmed Rosario. That's all you need to know where this team is.
I've had enough for today. That's enough.
That's when I looked it up. Now I might have just made a qualified batter, so that could be my fault. But if you look at, I closed that window since then. But either way, it's Ahmed Rosario, Josh Bell second. Thank you all for listening. We know on losses like this, we try to have some fun with it, keep it upbeat, and we appreciate all of you listening, all of the everydayers and everyone who just isn't some timer. If you're jumping in, that's what's important. We want to rise in the iTunes rankings. We're used to being higher. It's weird. Right now, we're kind of middle of the pack, even though all of our other data says we're good. We do want to say, make sure to check out tomorrow's game on the SiriusXM app. If you're listening to SiriusXM, you might hear our voices at some point in the near future doing some chatting with stuff. So check that out. But check out tomorrow's game, Quantrill versus Turnbull on the SiriusXM app. And thank you for watching. Remember to like, click, subscribe, download daily, and go Guardians, go.